Good morning, Anne.
Hi.
Hi. It is Wednesday, August 19th, 2020, and I think we both are in Colorado today. And I just wanted to touch base. We touched base about a month ago about how you were feeling about going back to school while we're still in this pandemic. And I think that the last month has probably brought you a lot more answers and insight and potentially frustration. But I wanted to touch base with you because I know that school food operators across the country are probably experiencing a lot of the same issues that you're experiencing right now. So first off, can you just generally speaking tell us what your biggest concern right now is about school food?
Well, it's really about schools. We shouldn't be opening them. I mean, that's the bottom line. This idea that somehow we should bring kids back to school when the virus is rampant, when we're getting ready for flu season, and when we've seen the universities fail miserably. UNC was open 1 week, Notre Dame was open 1 week. Here in Colorado, Colorado Community College already has 4 hotspots. And it was just announced today that CU, before the kids are even in, has a half dozen or a dozen kids that have the virus. I mean, I just don't think we are making the best decisions. I understand kids need to, be educated. I understand that kids need to be socialized, but we should have been spending the last 3 months as a country figuring out how to do the best online education that we could and not pretending we were going to be back to school. Because if we had a really robust online educational system where every kid had a digital device and every kid had internet, then we wouldn't be feeling so pressured to get the kids back in school. So I think that that's the lens that I'm looking through. So here in Boulder, we're not opening at this point. We are all online. At many school districts, the vast majority of the 20 biggest school districts in America are opening this with distance learning at this point. So that puts us all in a situation where we're going to be sending food home to kids. And even when we do open, it's probably going to be an A and B scenario where kids are in school 2 days a week. So then you're going to be sending food home for 3 days a week. The biggest issue is since last March, we've been feeding students, all districts who've been sending food home under some type of summer food program, whether it's Sing with Summer or whatever, but a summer school program. And under a summer school program, you're allowed to feed every child that shows up at one of your sites that are between 0 and 18 years old food. Doesn't matter if they go to your school, doesn't matter if they actually go to school at all. You could just give them food and would be reimbursed. And that is over. And so what's happening now is that we actually have to, now we can only serve our own kids. We actually have to get their name and school number. Before we could do 7 breakfasts and 7 lunches. Now we can only do 5 breakfasts and 5 lunches. Before the reimbursement rate was higher, now it's lower. And so my biggest fear now is that we are not taking care of hungry kids. And from a food insecurity standpoint, and schools in general are the largest food security operation business in the country. So from a food security standpoint, we are not taking care of our most vulnerable populations, giving them 5 breakfasts and 5 lunches, and only to the kids that can, that go to your school, that have their name, have their number. I mean, and just even asking all the families their names and numbers is going to kick some people out of the system. I mean, people who are potentially undocumented aren't going to come back after they show up on Monday because they're going to be afraid. And people on the edge. So let's just say you're a paid family, but you really need the food. Well, then we're still going to give you the food, but then the district is going to run out hundreds of thousands of dollars of negative balances. I mean, we could run up $1 million. The school district can't really afford that. So it's just a mess, and we don't have the waivers we need, and that's messy as well.
Wow. So that, I mean, I think that is the brief look at just some of the frustration and the larger picture issues you have been dealing with, and that school food directors across the country are dealing with their programs. And just to clarify for those who don't know, the summer program that Ant's talking about is the USDA guidance on the school meals program. And in the summer, the program is a little bit more flexible than when you go back to regular session, and that's kind of what Ann's talking about. I totally agree, and I also know that the unemployment continues to fluctuate at a huge rate. So we're getting more people unemployed all the time who need access to this quickly, access to this service, this family. So I like that you brought that up. Let's go a little bit more specific now to your particular program at Boulder Valley School District. What are you most concerned about today? Like, what are you taking on today?
What we're most concerned about today is getting food out for the kids on Monday. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. And because we don't have all the waivers that we had in the summer, we're trying to get the most food out to families within the finances we can afford, which is basically $2 a day for breakfast and lunch. That's what our food cost can be. And that's really, really little, especially given that the waivers haven't come through yet. So we have to offer bottled water. I mean, that's crazy, from every point of view, but we have to have bottled water available. We have to have 2 kinds of milk available. We have to have all the colors under the subgroups available. So trying to get that all into the bags for basically $10 a bag is really, really hard. And we support local farmers. So to buy the local farmer product and get all the subgroups in is costing us about $14, $15 a bag. So 40 or 50% more than we have budgeted in food costs. And if we didn't have to fit all the subgroups, we could buy all local product. But in talking to the government about this, it's really that the government doesn't care if we serve fresh local product. They don't really care if we serve farm fresh product. They don't really care about farm to school. What they care about is fitting the guidelines. And so as far as they're concerned, if we serve canned green beans and frozen broccoli, and we can do that in the money we have, they're just as happy. And then we fit all the subgroups. So it's really about trying to get delicious food in the quantities we need to hungry families at a cost that we can live with. And it's very difficult.
That's so hard. And, I mean, I think the issue you're bringing up is that, for people like yourself who have run programs in cafeterias, the system was set up so that you could provide an offer versus serve program, and you had a lot more maneuverability to work with the different subgroup colors. Now that you're having to go into the bag program, you're asking for a little bit of support so that you can still participate in local economies and purchase from local buyers. And I think that's really important. I think that's something that people don't understand.
And, to be fair, the government says we can still do offer versus serve, but just imagine we're having people out on the street trying to keep them safe in the time of COVID. At this point, we just want to hand them a full bag. To do offer versus serve, the families would have to have all this plethora of stuff, and they'd have to come through if it was a shopping cart, and we're outside. We didn't, the schools aren't open. We don't want people coming into a building. It's just really difficult. And, all of these waivers, and especially waivers around universal meals. I mean, all of these things should just be happening. And, if we could just feed all the kids, if we didn't have to do the paperwork to allocate them by category, free, reduced, and paid, if we had more flexibility around subgroups, we could be serving really good food. I mean, we're making food from scratch to put in these bags, but because of the lack of waivers, we're really struggling to do this in any kind of a financially viable fashion and not do highly processed. I guess that's the thing. If you want to do IW, individually wrapped, it's not a problem. The product's out there. You can serve whatever you want. And you probably can do it with the subgroups. I would bet there's some company making a sun butter sandwich with some kind of jelly or jam that has 3 or 4 colors in that jelly or jam. So you have this pre-packaged plastic wrapped, no crust, peanut butter, sun butter, and jelly something that meets 10 things. But we don't want to do that.
It's really interesting, because if you are struggling, someone who's a veteran in school food, someone who's a veteran in serving scratch cooked meals in schools, if you are struggling to serve healthier food, then we know that in the 15,000 districts across the country, they must be struggling. Can you give us an idea of what is in a bag? Give us an idea of what you are serving right now in a bag.
So every breakfast and every lunch includes fruit and milk. Every lunch includes vegetables. We're doing all the vegetables by the subgroup. Breakfast could include muffins or bagels or cereal, breakfast burritos. Lunches might include, I think this coming week, we made calzones that are going to go in the bag. We also have nitrate-free, all beef, organic hot dogs that are in the bags, and rolls. So some things that can be made into food really quick. But we also are doing things like dried pasta and our own spaghetti sauce that we've made. So we're having this mix of something that's easy to prepare at home, like even just the calzones could be heated by a student in a microwave, but we also have something that the family could cook. So we're trying to balance both of them.
That's really important. And, to the school districts out there that are really struggling, that are trying to at least hold on to some level of scratch cooking, what are some of the easier meals, 1 or 2 ideas on easier meals that you think they could still scratch cook and parcel out and bag up?
So it really depends on their facilities. So many school districts lack facilities. So many school districts don't have blast freezers. I mean, it's not like you can take a raw calzone or raw pizza and just give it to someone, and expect them to drive it around in their car, or if they're in an urban environment, they're taking the bus or the subway. So it really is dependent upon the type of facility they have, which is why so many school districts are going to IW, because the process of making this food and getting it away that it can be packaged 1 or 2 days ahead of time, and then refrigerated or frozen and given out at a site, and then someone's going to put it in their car or take it on the bus or get on the subway, drive around for a while before they get it home and unpacked and put away. Just the idea of food safety is hard. So, I mean, if a school district is already making, pasta marinara, well, you could give away dry pasta, you could make marinara sauce, you could give away cheese. And then you could have some MMAs that way. Some of the other things we're making as we get into the fall, we just finalized the menu, is chicken burritos, because we can do it with commodity foods or USDA foods chicken to keep our costs down, and using USDA beans and USDA cheese. We've got calzones. We're making pasta. We are doing pasta marinara. We're going to do refried beans and send home tortillas and cheese, so kids could make little burritos at home themselves, or just heat up the beans and dip in the tortillas, or make quesadillas. So I guess the thing I would say is, Try and do simple things that can be assured that from the time you make them to the time somebody eats them, you can keep them safe and healthy. And again, that's why so many people are going to IW, because it's complicated.
Yeah. That's really good to know. I mean, I think it's super important to understand that if you are struggling with this, this is a struggle across the country. And there is truly an equity issue here because, you know, it is not good enough just to fill bellies with the calories they need. We really have to think about the level, the food quality, the health quality, the quality level of the food that we are making accessible to our nation's children. Um, so a few weeks ago, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, you met with the Chef Ann Foundation's advisory board. Chef Ann Foundation has an advisory board of about 9 different food service directors from across the country in different districts that we collaborate with on ideas and talk to them about issues and how we should help different school districts across the country. What would you say was the primary concern from these districts coming out of that meeting?
100% were waivers. It's really the waivers. It's everyone, 100% of school food directors that I know believe we need universal meals. This is the time. We should have it. We should not have to count every kid by category. We should just go back to the way we were this summer, universal meals, summer feeding, just count the number of kids and give away food to hungry people and have the food be as healthy as possible. And I think across the board, everyone believes this. And I think that's what we should be focused on. I mean, unemployment is at record high levels and it's not getting better. And we're going to see more and more layoffs as we get to winter, as restaurants and food service operations and retail operations are going bankrupt all across the country. We really have to be focused on food security, and the best way to do that is universal meals and go back to the summer feeding guidelines.
That's great. Yeah, I was not able to be at that meeting, but I read through the notes, and that definitely seemed like it was the primary concerns coming from these school food professionals.
So what about CAF? You know, with everything going on, what's CAF doing to support school food service directors, and how is CAF really helping the industry at this point?
Yeah, you know, the Chef Ann Foundation right now is trying to help its school district partners in the ways that they are asking for. And I think what they are asking for, you know, what we mentioned here, Anne, is that, you know, you have years and years experience, both in the culinary end of food service and in school food now. And a lot of newer food service directors, a lot of smaller districts with less resources than Boulder Valley, resources meaning less staff, or less trained staff, or they're just newer in their positions, are kind of struggling to go through some of the same things that you are talking about. So what the Chef Ann Foundation is doing is that we have been building out our resources on our websites right now for emergency response feeding. And one of the things that I'm most excited about right now is some work that we're doing on kind of just the questions that I was talking to you about. What type of foods can still be cooked from scratch when you're dealing with a remote feeding program? What type of equipment you need? What's the packaging that you need to look at in order to do that? The distribution implications. So that is the content that, you know, that we're looking at to support our districts right now. And, you know, we're also looking at advocacy, how we can participate in different groups to advocate for the things that you were talking about, Anne, the waivers, the guidance, the universal free meals. You know, you guys are so busy out there, and we need to help elevate your voices to help legislators and different organizations and federal groups understand what you need.
Well, you know, all that costs money. You know, advocacy costs money, content costs money. So how can people help CAF do this work?
Yeah, you know, there's a lot that our country is in need of money in many corners right now. You know, there's a lot of organizations out there. Um, CAF is one of them. You have always been a great guidance for us to stay small, stay nimble, so that we're always able to be fluid in what we do. So we have a small team of 10 people, and you know, we've worked with over 11,000 schools across the country. But you know, we need support right now to stick around. You know, we are going to come out of this. I think I just heard Dr. Fauci this morning talk about the fact that he really feels that um, the inoculation is going to be ready in January, and that by March, April, that it's going to be very available to everyone. So we have to plan for the day that school food gets back to normal. We have made a huge amount of progress in school food reform in the last 10 years, you know, particularly since the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act of 2010. But this pandemic, like you said, is starting to push us back a little bit because people are having to rely on processed or individually wrapped items to go into these grab and go meals, because salad bars are not in use anymore, and we know those are the tools that help create the most sustainable access to fresh fruits and vegetables in schools. So what CAF is doing is, we are, in addition to supporting districts right now, we are planning for regular school food service and how we are going to make sure that we continue this fight for school food reform, and that we continue to help the districts that want to move away from ultra processed food and move into scratch cooking, and support the equity of food in their communities.
That's great. You know, I mean, it's a really hard time, but we will get through this, and school food will get back on track. I'm sure of it.
It will. Thank for you and for everyone, for every school food professional out there. We are grateful to what you're doing. Thanks, Anne.
My pleasure.